Welcome to a coffee tasting of two coffees that have been sent to me by our long-term coffee partners, Falcon Speciality. These were sent to me blind in the post. I just picked them up yesterday. They are two coffees from very different origins, one being El Salvador and the other Ethiopia. The Ethiopian is Daanissa, a natural processed coffee from that area, and the El Salvador Finca Noruega is an anaerobic natural Bourbon varietal. Bourbon is a varietal that I really enjoy roasting and drinking. So I'll be interested to see exactly what these taste like. As I said, they've been sent to me blind. I wasn't expecting them, but it would be interesting to see what they taste like. So I've applied water to the cups as I would usually do. We're 8.5 minutes into the total brew time. I look to maybe start tasting around 10 to 11 minutes. It depends on the ambient temperature, but today we're looking at 14 degrees ambient, so quite cool, but yeah, probably go into maybe 11 minutes and then I'll start tasting the coffee. So I've gone onto Falcon's website just to see if I can get any background information on the coffees before I taste. I know that is some degree of bias that would be leaning into the tasting, but I'm just interested to know a little bit about the farm. They do have details on the Noruega from El Salvador, but I can't actually find anything on the Daanissa. So maybe this is a pre-shipped sample or something that is on a special offer, because sometimes I get sent special offer coffees. So the Finca Noruega from El Salvador seems quite an interesting coffee or farm. The lot seems to be made up by Bourbon. It was selectively picked. There is the altitude is around 1,450 meters above sea level. The Bourbon was washed and floated before being fermented in barrels for 48 to 72 hours, depending on the pH of the coffee in the water. The coffee was then laid on drying beds for between 25 and 30 days, and then moved every hour until ready between the hours of 8 AM and 2:30. Interestingly, Finca Noruega also placed 15 in the Cup of Excellence back in 2020. So a stellar coffee farm this is. So we are at 11.25 minutes now, so let's get into the tasting. Never tasted these before. I've not looked at the leading flavor profiles that come on websites. Falcon have a pretty intuitive website that will describe not only farm information or lot details, but will give some degree of flavor descriptors based on their cupping team, all of whom are Q graders like myself, so the language that they use is pretty valuable. Anyway, so let's get into the tasting and see what we see. Do excuse me, I have realized I've not got a glass to wash my spoon. It's really important to be able to wash your spoon between cups, so we'll just temporarily dip that in there. Okay. Right, two very different coffees here. Just gonna have a little taste again. So this anaerobic natural process has got a little bit of that lactic type of quality that you may find in a coffee of this method of processing. There's quite a prevalent chocolate in there as well. I would tend to expect that type of chocolate quality from a Central American coffee, one from El Salvador, and it being a Bourbon variety. I have historically really enjoyed using coffees from El Salvador in our espresso blends. I feel that the Bourbon and the chocolate characteristics that you get in this cultivar is really well suited to that method of brewing. Just have another little taste. There's like, there's some red fruits in this, maybe a little orange, a little bit of citrus as well. Interestingly, the acidity isn't as pronounced as maybe I would expect from a processing method, the anaerobic processing method. Quite an interesting coffee. Not one that I would naturally lean into because I tend to not shy away, but I tend to enjoy washed coffees way more than I do any other processing method. But it's always nice to taste these sorts of things on the cupping table. As it's beginning to cool, the sweetness is coming through. I'm getting more of that red fruits. There's possibly a touch of caramel in there as well. But still got this chocolate finish. Quite a nice coffee, to be fair. Let's taste this Ethiopian. Now, this is a much more classic natural coffee from Ethiopia. So I'm getting quite a heady amount of fruit character. Forest fruits, lots of sort of berry type of characteristics. There's a higher level of acidity in this coffee than there is the El Salvador. There's a nice pronounced sweetness. And quite an interesting florality to the coffee as well, which is a little surprising from natural processed coffees from Ethiopia. There once was a time where the extended fermentation that you get on this natural process or dry process, you'd expect to find these very heady, prominent fruit flavors, but the industry has become much more refined over recent years, and we're now in a spectrum where actually some natural processed coffees can be pretty clean and pretty crisp, whereas they once were funky and wild. Sometimes you get like farmyard type of characters in the cup, but today they are of greater clarity, much more palatable on the basis that you can drink these types of things every day, rather than being these one-off, fantastic on the cupping table, divisive coffees that sort of pet people's imagination. So anyway, back to the coffee. Yeah, forest fruits. What do I mean by that? There's like, I'm thinking little red and purple berries, little peps of acidity in there, a pretty nice sweetness. The finish is a touch on that, again, chocolate type of finish, a long finish on my palate. This would be really well suited to filter brewing. I can imagine this as a really interesting batch coffee in cafes. I've got a price on this bag as well, which seems pretty fair at $7 a kilo. So this could be a special offer. The $13.95 per kilo on the El Salvador is, I would say, a fair price as well. It's not necessarily a coffee that I would purchase. That's namely to do with the method of processing. This sort of anaerobic processing isn't something that I particularly enjoy drinking every day, and the coffees that I purchase for the roastery are ones that I enjoy drinking, rather than ones that I feel my customer base would enjoy. So would I buy either of these coffees? Probably not. From a natural processed Ethiopian coffee, I would want maybe a more prevalent fruit character. This does have good clarity, but I would want it to be a bit more fruited. The Anaerobic Natural from El Salvador, I feel isn't a coffee that I particularly would enjoy drinking myself, and isn't something that would really excite me to purchase. So it's not likely that I would purchase this as well. That's not to say that these coffees aren't great. It's just that they don't naturally fit into the types of things that I enjoy brewing, roasting, and therefore selling to my customer profile or portfolio. So I hope you've enjoyed this little insight into tasting blind some samples that are sent to me by an importer. Thank you, Falcon, for sending these over, and I look forward to tasting some more. Cheers.